this. We are in an era where sex sells. Okay.
Yes.
We have dressed women on cars. We have dressed women promoting insurance. I mean, and so sex sells. Sometimes it develops a mindset within certain individuals, and they will begin to think just because sex sells that everyone is involved with selling sex to be promoted.
Right.
It becomes a mindset that if I want to be promoted, I can sleep my way to the top.
Yep.
Everybody doesn't have standards. And I'm going to say this too, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, guys. I'm going to say this. If those allegations about Brother Cosby are true, and if he did do those things to those women, I will add this, guys. The reason why he continued to do it is because there's some women who said yes. And sometimes we categorize women under this particular umbrella, and we think that just because a certain group of women would say yes, that everyone is going to say yes to me. So when you approach women and they tell you no, then that is something that you've never experienced before. So you have to approach it from a different perspective. And so what I'm saying is one of the reasons why sexual harassment right now is prevalent in our society is because all women don't have the same standards, all men don't have the same standards, and everybody is not telling.
True.
And because everyone is not telling, people think that they can continue to get away with this type of behavior until someone tells. The problem is people who tell take years, take months, and take hours before they come forward because they're dealing with embarrassment from my perspective, a form of embarrassment and a form of fear, MBZ.
That really is a good point, because I can't even imagine how embarrassed I would have felt in the situation where it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really crazy. But, another thing that I always wonder, and I know none of us are psychiatrists or psychologists, but, I just want to, just food for thought, dig into a little bit of psyche. Why do people of power, or how do people of power think that some of these things are a good idea? Because, you have people who try to keep it under wraps, and then you have people like our president who says to grab somebody by the explicit. And then you had, Senator Al Franken, who there were pictures of him pretending to grab a woman's breast as she slept. Why do people think that these are good ideas? Or why do you think that powerful or influential people feel the need for that type of behavior?
But I think it's a mindset, because sometimes in the eyes of people, money is power.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've learned, and I don't know about you, Finbad, but I've heard if you give somebody some money, you'll really see what's in their heart, because they feel like they don't have to abide by the rules that commoners abide by. But to me, sexual harassment is sexual harassment. I don't care if you're the president. I don't care if you are the janitor. Point blank, period. It is derogatory. It is egregious. It is offensive. But one of the problems we have in our nation is a double standard.
Absolutely.
We want to prosecute who we want to prosecute. So it makes it look very weak when a woman comes up and say, I'm being harassed, but you have proof, you have writing, you have a person coming up saying that, he did this to me. You have a recording of the individual saying that, well, hey, when I want a woman, I do A, B, and C. And when we do not prosecute that type of behavior, it weakens our system. It weakens someone telling or having the courage to tell, because they're going to say nothing will happen anyway. Well, what are your thoughts on that then, Bat?
Yeah, money just amplifies what you are already.
Yeah.
So if you were a poor jerk, when you get money, you can be a rich jerk. In some ways, folks tend to just amplify. But why people get caught up in these kind of things, I think, in large part, is because people, they think they're untouchable. It changes who they are. They've got a whole bunch of security where they may have been insecure before. They've got a whole bunch of folks around them telling them, hangers on who say, oh, you're doing right. That's the right thing to do. Or they hang around folks who are maybe twice as bad as they are, so they can say, well, at least I'm not like this one. It's just like power and money both corrupt.
Absolutely.
Or have the potential to corrupt. Let's put it that way. I won't say it's not those two entities, not power and money in and of themselves, but it's just what people choose to do with them. And I think, again, it points to not, and I really don't think, I think we've, in this country, we've kind of separated things out as what men will do and what women will do. And I think it's kind of an individual thing, and it's what people in power do. I think if the tables were turned and say it was I don't know. I mean, that'd be a good question to ponder.
Sure.
What if women ran the world like men did? Would you have some of the same things? Would you have some of the same situations? What if in some countries, and I'm jumping off point, I guess, but showing the trying to make the point that, in some countries, there are countries where they're all monochromatic. There's very limited diversity.
Right.
But you have people oppressing their own people. So in certain countries, you have people doing that. In some of the countries that we see, we have people creating genocide with their own people.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not a thing that's kind of based on color. It's the mindset of people who are in power, an improper mindset of folks that are in power. And I think folks become blind and corrupted by I'm untouchable. There's nothing you can't do anything for me until they get touched.
Until somebody touch them. That's what I wanted to say.
Until somebody touches them. That's right. That's right.
Let's take a look at some of these comments we've been getting in the chat. So can we have our engineer read to us some of the comments we've been getting? Can you?
I sure can.
What do we have?
From what it looks like, Gina
Rogers,
said, what we would consider old-fashioned etiquette, having chaperones and not touching others than the handshaking, might need to be brought back in today's society.
I agree with that. You don't hug. Listen, I teach my daughters, everybody does not deserve a hug from you. People should respect your space.
That's true.
Extend your hand out and shake hands. You're absolutely right.
What else are they saying?
What else, engineer?
She also continued and says, sexual harassment is the worst kind of bullying in our society.
Oh.
Those who do it started out doing it as a joke, and they weren't ever put in check.
Yep.
They saw how it affected people and how it made them feel powerful.
Absolutely. It started off as being jovial or jesting, and it turned into something.
I agree.
I'm under the impression, too, guys, that whatever you allow, a person will continue to do it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes things need to be interrupted with the reprimand.
Right.
And some fella got one time for my daughter to come and tell me.
So and so.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
What else we got?
We also have Tiffany Connor, who said some people wait to speak up because they're trying to, I believe she wanted to say, dwell with it or...
deal
with it themselves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that too, because you don't know how to respond.
Definitely.
And sometimes, you keep it to yourself because you're trying to process it. But certain things that we go through in life needs intervention. It needs somebody to help us think it through, to talk it through, and then someone to process how do you live after this has happened to you.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you guys, because, if a woman were to come up to me and ask me, okay, how do I deal with sexual harassment? I think as a woman, it's easy to give that advice where you can say, okay, well, if you don't already have proof, let's get some documentation. You better stick a phone in your pocket and record something, like do X, Y, Z. But, we have these college athletes. You know, my boyfriend's a college athlete, and he thinks I'm crazy because I
You're
don't
what?
like my but he's a college athlete, and he thinks I'm crazy because I don't like him around women that aren't normally around him because they're weird. Like I hear stories all the time about athletes who end up getting rape allegations or sexual harassment allegations just for them to lose their scholarship, go through a whole trial, and sometimes the girl will come forward like this recent situation on the East Coast where she'll say, okay, I didn't do it. And, you know, that's the first case I've ever seen publicly where she got charged for lying. But, you know, by then it's already over. So I think as a woman, it's easy to give the advice of what a woman should do with that situation. But for a man to man, what advice would you give to a young man or any man in the situation where they have to prove themselves to be innocent in that situation?
Well, you know, I would say this too, though, and I've shared this with my sons, that young men have to be careful about what they say and how they play and just with young ladies and women. They really do. I also believe that accountability is important, but the challenge we have is the immaturity in the mind of a young boy. All right? He's mannish. He's trying to see how far he can go. He's trying to see what he can get away with. And he's also trying to see how easy the young lady is. And you have some young ladies, as I hope my daughter is, she's not going for it. And, you know, hopefully no means no,
Right.
or whatever, or I'm not interested. But, you know, it depends, Ambizi, on the young man, on the man, period. Because you can tell them and give them wisdom and instructions and how to navigate through certain things. But if their mindset won't allow them to accept it and adjust their behaviors, they're going to put themselves in that situation.
I agree.
I was an athlete too coming up, and everybody wanted to date an athlete.
Of course.
Period.
Still like that today.
Yes, ma'am.
You ain't miss much.
Amen. And some parents would even try to connect their daughters
Yes.
with the athletes.
On the
right?
high school level.
On the high school level. Now, we ain't going to talk about college. We ain't talking about the pros. How about that? That's a whole nother monster that we don't have time for. But I think that type of parenting, too, presents a certain image on that child, you know, and the young man may think that, man, if mom is bringing them, then daughter, she may be, you know, kind of easy.
Right.
You know, so it's a case-by-case sensitive type of situation. But I would tell any young man, embrace accountability. Watch what you are saying and texting, and have people around you that can vouch for what you do and what you say. It's very important. Very important.
Well, all right. It appears the Me Too movement has inspired many and infuriated others, as most movements do. So after the break, let's talk about the future. What's next? How long will this movement last? And, of course, we'll give it to you straight, no chaser. We'll be right back.
Right back.
You're listening to Straight No Chaser, the only show to quench your talk radio thirst.
Anyone else?
My name is David, and in 8 years, I'll be an alcoholic.
Hi, David.
I'll start drinking in middle school, just at parties. But my parents won't start talking to me about it till high school. And by then, I'll already be in some trouble.
Kids who drink before age 15 are 5 times more likely to have alcohol problems when they're adults.
The thing is, my parents won't even see it coming.
So start talking.
Who's next?
Before they start drinking.
I just remembered it's election day. Are you going to vote?
I don't know. I don't think I'll have time today.
Millions of eligible voters in America never make it to the polls or even register to vote. When you don't vote, you're letting other people make decisions for you and pick the things your taxes will pay for. Voting is more than a civic duty. It gives you a voice about the priorities and the future of your community and our nation. Voting gives you a seat at the table.